Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Great to be here. Cloudy today, a little bit. It's all right. We're here for a great ceremony for Lieutenant Kyron Bell to send him off like we should. Welcome to the retirement ceremony of Lieutenant Kyron Bell. Will the guests please rise for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the national anthem, followed by the invocation. Side voice, post. Postmaster watch, sound 4 bells. Captain, United States Navy, arriving. Postmaster watch, sound 2 bells. Lieutenant, United States Navy, arriving. Side boys, post. Color guard, parade the colors.
Color guard, attention, forward, march.
Platform, hand salute.
March time, march. Counter left, march. Detail, halt. Present, arm.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? The brave.
Color guard, retire the colors.
Forward, march.
ready, two. Chaplain Hankson, United States Navy, would now deliver the invocation.
Let us pray. Gracious Lord, God of the chaplain, giving your voice through evening prayer to the ship, we pray one more prayer today for the chaplain himself. Today we invite your presence here as we mark this day as the culmination of Chaplain Bell's faithful service to you and your nation. You've been the silent witness to much more than we can recount here. And we know his service has not been alone. For Elena, Kadir, Caden, and Kylie have already sacrificed more of themselves than 99% of our nation. So, Lord, use this time to fill us with a true sense of what his career has meant to you, to our Air Force and our Navy, and to our lives personally. Remind those present through these traditions that we lose nothing here today, only gain by the direction and experience we've enjoyed, as he has faithfully worn the cloth of his nation these past 27 years. For it is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Hankson. Please be seated. On behalf of the Commander of Tory Combat Ship Squadron 1 and the men and women of the United States Navy, I'd like to welcome you to this special occasion, marking the retirement ceremony for Lieutenant Kyron Bell. We're gathered this morning in recognition and to witness the final stage following 27 years of honorable service to the United States Navy and Air Force, and in keeping with one of the oldest traditions of military service. I would especially like to extend a warm welcome to his mother, Ora Jane. Welcome, ma'am. I know that you, more than any of us, are vividly aware of the sacrifices that your son has made. This retirement ceremony is intended to convey, in part, a grateful nation's sincerest expression of appreciation for a job well done, and to officially recognize Kyron's 27 years of faithful and honorable military service. It is a day of great significance for Kyron, as we recall a rich, rewarding life, having experienced a broad variety of challenging assignments while serving our great country in the defense of freedom. Shipmates past and present are in attendance today. Highlights of his career will be reviewed, with awards and commendations cited, and a senior officer will properly bid him farewell. So thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce our presiding official, Captain Hank Kim, United States Navy.
Test.
1, 2. 1, 2. Okay. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing?
All right, good, sir.
Let me get this out here. Thank you very much for the introduction, Chaplain Bell. Thank you for the invitation to come and speak about your achievements and to address your family, friends, and shipmates here. I can't express what an extreme honor it is for me to be here and to share with you a little bit about an incredible naval officer, chaplain, and shipmate. Although our paths crossed only briefly in its impressive 27 years, I, like many he's called shipmate, have benefited from his professionalism, care, kindness, strength, and unstoppable energy, and his amazing sense of cool fashion, which you can't see today because we had to wear our uniforms, but those of you who see him on Saturday service know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, many of you may not know that Lieutenant Bell, as cool as he is actually from very, very humble beginnings over in Paterson, New Jersey. A great American city, no doubt, but like many great cities, it has its pockets of not so great places. Anybody seen the movie Lean on Me? Remember that? kind of reflective of Patterson, wouldn't you say? Any character in the movie based on you, Chaplain? No? On the gangster side or on the good student? Probably the gangster side? I'd be the good student side. Well, we'll talk about your scholastic aptitude a little bit later. But as rough and tumble as Patterson may have been, it did imbue Chaplain Bell with some critical attributes that would pay some dividends later on in life. An understanding of street life and important street smarts. It isn't about not getting tricked or bamboozled. It's about understanding where a large swath of our sailors come from, and especially how to relate to them and speak to them. Critical capabilities for a chaplain and for a leader. Chaps, from what I understand, you did okay in high school, but didn't exactly know what you wanted to do later in life, not unlike many of us. I know I was pretty clueless about a future career when I was that young. But if you were going to do something in this world, make your mark, you need money. And Mama Bell's allowance, as good as it was, only went so far. So Chaplain Bell picked up a job at Chick-fil-A, and he used that money to put himself through community college, and he learned the value of a dollar and the value of an education. He kept at this for about 2 years, living at home and enjoying the benefits of Mama Bell's cooking and love, and not to mention free rent, which is really important. But at the age of 20, right, he was a man ready for the world and something bigger. And so there was a catalyst for change here. He was ready to drop living with the curfew at home, too. So that was a big one. Didn't look too cool if you were grown up and then you had to tell your friends you had a curfew to go back to. So Chaplain Bell defied it once, the curfew. Lesson learned. Never again. Need to move out. So fortuitously, the Air Force recruiter called about this time and gave Chaplain Bell an opportunity to strike out on his own. Good job, educational opportunities, medical benefits, etc. Many of us here have heard that. Now, he did admit that military service, Chaplain Bell admitted that military service wasn't at the top of his list of career choices. He just thought it was for clueless youngsters who didn't know what else to do. Well, it can be, and shipmate, you fit that description at the time, right? So young Chiron Bell shipped off to Air Force boot camp in San Antonio, Texas. And how do you think this young, street-smart, tough inner-city kid did at boot camp? How many of you think, show of hands, awesome, top of his class? Oh, that's good. You made a good impression on people. How many think he got kicked out? Wow. Oh, yeah, there's a couple. I tell you, he got sent back. After starting, he got sent back 10 days. He got rolled back 10 days. And this is only after 5 days at boot camp. I mean, how is this even possible? You get sent back 10 days after 5. He was so full of bad attitude and a chip on his shoulder that they added 5 days and put him in solitary confinement. So Chap sat there alone and thought, maybe this military thing, isn't my thing. Not the right path. And he could go back to Patterson, but then what? Tell folks what? I failed out of boot camp. No, can't do that. Chaps had a sense of pride, and he had a competitive nature, which we will see later on that served him very well. And it served him well here because that competitive nature and pride won him over and helped sway him to stick it out. And let's not forget, Mama Bell ran a pretty tight ship at home too, right? And going back, that wasn't necessarily easier. So he stuck it out. Airman Bell then went to Whiteman, Missouri for his first assignment. He was rated a information manager, which is equivalent to a Navy yeoman, or an administrative assistant out in the civilian world. Chaps concentrated on his studies, got his associates, and really began to shine in the service. He got sent on his first deployment to Saudi Arabia in 1995. Mind you, the U.S. was going through enforcing the UN no-fly zone against the Saddam regime in Iraq. And U.S. forces in Saudi Arabia were under constant threat from opposition forces. Here, Airman Bell experienced what it was like to be under military attack and witnessed the beginnings of the war against terrorism when a car bomb in Riyadh killed 5 Americans. Now, not many of us have been under imminent threat like that. Fear and apprehension, sometimes like this, can bring a real and be really real, and many of our service members have struggled at times to deal with it. Airman Bell, however, found strength in his faith to help him get through this time. An active and strong member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, his faith was developed and nurtured at a young age through his family and especially through his mother, Miss Ora Jane Bell. Family worship was regularly practiced at the Bell home when Chiron was growing up. And in a divine combination of spirituality, faith, competition, and youthful exuberance, Chiron Bell was always clamoring to play the role of the preacher during these family worship times, maybe foretelling a bit of the future. It may have been driven more by competition, though, with his older brother. It was competition that enticed Chaps to play the lead role of the preacher, rather than faith, maybe. But faith, as they say, can work in mysterious ways. So in Riyadh, Airman Bell's early faith took new root with a small Christian church there. He was active and was part of the choir. He's always had a strong connection with music and singing in faith, helped solidify his connection with Christian worship, and helped build his resiliency in a time of trepidation and fear. You were a tenor, right? Is that tenor? Close, okay. Can we get a little sample compared to the national anthem? That'd be tough act to follow. All right. So next, senior Airman Bell went to Keesler Air Force Base in Missouri. I should mention, before Chaps left Whiteman in Saudi Arabia, he received the Commendation Medal for his stellar performance. Now, this is a pretty high award for him at the time. I mean, Commendation Medal, many of you know, it's normally given to a commissioned officer with about 4 to 10 years of service. And Chaplain Bell got this as a junior enlisted E4 with not even 3 years of service on board. So not too shabby right off the start. Anyway, back to his next assignment in Keesler. Because of his stellar performance, Senior Airman Bell was selected to be an instructor. This is a pretty selective process, as you all know, being an instructor. Instructors not only train future generations of airmen, but serve as role models for the junior enlisted. Senior Airman Bell was definitely turning into an impactful role model. Senior Airman Bell was, during the 3 years at Keesler, he taught and influenced hundreds of junior airmen, many of whom went on to serve many more years and get promoted. Years later, Chaplain Bell would run into a few of these airmen who would recognize him and thank him for his positive influence. I think that's the best feeling. You know, it's not getting awards and medals, but when fellow shipmates come out, remember you and thank you for being a good leader and helping them. I'm confident that you'll have many more of these types of encounters. Keesler was also where Chaps continued to grow in his faith. Chiron joined the Maranatha Seventh-day Adventist Church, where he took on leading Bible study, and he got rebaptized and gave up secular music. Now, this last thing I mentioned, secular music, it'd be easy to just mention it and move on, but doing so wouldn't do it justice to show how big a sacrifice it was, because Chiron loved his secular music. I mean, loved it, especially hip-hop. It'd be like Tom Brady giving up football or McDonald's giving up the Big Mac. Okay? It was a big, big deal. And it was a profound sign that Chiron was committed to his faith and service. Even the pastor at Maranatha Church recognized the strong calling Chiron had with his faith and ordained him as an elder. Now, you don't have to be too old to be an elder, but you do have to have demonstrated an incredible level of faith and commitment, which sometimes comes with age and maturity. So it was amazing to see this level of faith and commitment from a relatively young man, and this is where Chiron started to develop his unique, passionate, sincere, and spirit-stirring preaching style. Continuing on this theme of excellence, now newly promoted Staff Sergeant Bell went to the Pentagon for special duty working under the Assistant Secretary of Defense. Chaps joined the local church in D.C., serving as a deacon and continuing praise and worship through singing. DC was closer to New Jersey, so Chiron enjoyed being able to go home to see mom more often. Life was good. But after a few months, Chiron was apparently ready for something else. He had gained more self-confidence. He had an associate's degree. He had highly marketable skills in information technology. This made Chiron reevaluate life in the civilian world. There was a high demand in the civilian sector for IT professionals, and some IT career fields could fetch a pretty high salary. So he decided that he would not reenlist and instead separate from the Air Force. I mean, I think we've all been there at some point in our careers. So fast forward a bit, and 2 weeks before his last day in the military, Chiron had a change of heart. Life in the military was great, and life in the civilian world could be great too, but it was unknown. The Air Force, instead of being annoyed at Chiron's vacillation, actually was eager to keep a highly decorated and skilled airman in, and it was fortunate for us. Chiron, however, had to get a new set of orders because his original separation request triggered a replacement for him at the Pentagon, and so he had to leave. The very spot, however, where Chiron worked at the Pentagon was later hit by one of the planes from the 9/11 attacks. So we are indeed fortunate that Providence kept you safe and brought us all here to this day. So after the Pentagon, Staff Sergeant Bell went to Strategic Command in Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. Life was a little different in Nebraska, wasn't it? You went from one of the most densely populated cities in the U.S. to one of the most sparsely populated cities. So not a lot of action, right? Well, maybe. On that fateful day, September 11th, 2001, many of us remember, Offutt Air Force Base became the primary command and control center for the president and his senior staff. As planes crashed into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, the president was evacuated and eventually taken to STRATCOM. And guess who was on watch there? Staff Sergeant Bell. He provided secure message services that directly and indirectly informed and influenced national security at the highest levels of government. Although the exact details of the event are better told at a different security level, suffice it to say, I would not have imagined our very own mild-mannered Chaplain Bell to have been such an important player during one of our country's most crucial moments. So you can sign autographs after the ceremony. Staff Sergeant Bell was then selected to a special program again. You know, folks, you ever meet that annoying, overachieving friend that your parents always compare you to? That's Chiron. That's Chiron. So he was selected to be a recruiter, and I mean only the best of the best become recruiters. You have to be. You're out there trying to convince young people to commit to a large and potentially scary organization. And I must admit, Chiron had it all. He had that street smarts because he grew up in Patterson. He was a great speaker. Although shy as a youth, his military service and his religious service both helped him develop an incredible ability to connect with people. He had seen a variety of assignments and places, and above all, looked super sharp. The uniform, the shoes, the hair, the eyebrows, the makeup, the pedicure. That's a little too much information. Sorry, too much detail. Well, if you think he looks good now, you should see him in civilian clothes. I mean, he makes the guys on the cover of GQ magazine really look like amateurs. Like I said, many of you have seen him, and I can see people nodding their heads out in the audience. Here's another annoying fact about Chiron. So he's going through this recruiter training, graduated at the top of his recruiting class. All I can say is I'm glad my parents aren't here to hear this because I'd be compared all day. The other great part about this recruiting assignment was that it was in New Jersey, near his mom, his old-time friends, and family. And it was his opportunity to give opportunity back to his community, to the aimless youth like he was way back when. Chiron loved his job. He wasn't stuck behind a desk. He was out in the community giving information, options, and hope for a career and better life. He went to schools, malls, colleges, and barbershops. I mean, I would never have thought about barbershops. I don't think a lot of people would have. Turns out it's a social hub where a lot of youth hang out and socialize. And it's one of those street smart things that set Chiron apart. During this time, Chiron was able to complete his bachelor's degree in business information systems. And although the degree made him more knowledgeable and proficient in his job in the Air Force, what Chiron really wanted was to become an officer. This degree was the key because it was a prerequisite. Then it dawned on him that he might be able to combine his goal of becoming an officer with his commitment to his religious faith by becoming a chaplain. Great idea. The proverbial best of both worlds. And as all overachievers do, he applied and was accepted into the officer chaplain program. Now, Chiron went through seminary at Andrews University in Mississippi. 3 glorious years of studying, right? 5 to 6 classes a semester. Yeah. Cakewalk, right? I think that's what you're doing. You read the Bible and you're done, right? Well, you do read the Bible, but you have to read it in Hebrew and Greek. So it made it a little bit more challenging. I spoke with Chiron's younger sister, Nija, and she said she hardly saw Chiron during that time. He basically lived at the library, and he got good grades. At least that's what I was told. Is that right? So let's check. Say something in Hebrew. Oh, he said something. What does that mean? Okay, I was just kidding, but I believe you. All right, but not only studying, Chiron went above and beyond during this time. He was also director of social affairs, senior seminarian at his local church where he interned, preached, and continued to sing in the choir. He was vice president of the seminary student body and was president of the Chaplains Club. I mean, I'm tired just reading about it. As part of the military chaplain intake process, upon graduation, chaplains are required to serve 2 years as a civilian pastor, which Chaps did. He did it over a 2-church district in the cities of Mobile and Daphne, Alabama. One of the greatest privileges and responsibilities was to baptize members into the church, which he rightly took great honor in doing so. As time grew near to re-enter military service, Chaplain Bell could feel another calling. It was still in ministry, but to serve those military members out there on the front lines, operational units, dealing with the hardships of combat, fear, and separation from family and loved ones. If he remained in the Air Force, the chances that he'd be a base chaplain was high. Chaps felt he could best serve more operational units on the front lines if he transferred to the Army. However, the Army wanted him to do a little bit more time as a civilian pastor. Chiron, he was anxious to get out there and do military ministry, so he looked to the Navy, and there he saw that there were similar opportunities serving operational units, but of course, in this case, serving on ships. So it was a perfect fit, and Chaplain Bell transferred over from the Air Force to the Navy, and we were lucky to have him. He first served the Navy at our boot camp up in Great Lakes, Illinois. Although Chiron had previous experience in youth ministry, this was youth ministry on steroids. I mean, there he ministered literally to thousands of sailors as they in processed into the Navy. That's where they all go, is the Great Lakes. Most in the age group of 18 to 24, so really young folks. His previous hardship in boot camp, remember he almost got kicked out, served as good life lessons for him to relate with the youngsters going through. He could relate to them during this trying time. And as Chiron stated to me, God doesn't let a good trial go to waste. And so he was using those lessons. He helped countless sailors persevere and still periodically runs into sailors with whom he had positive impact. So after that, next he went to serve with the Marines at Cherry Point, North Carolina. And there's a spirited group of human beings there. He was the command chaplain responsible for over 2,500 combat-ready Marines. He provided resiliency, spiritual and moral support, and counseling to Marines going out to the front lines. He also schooled a bunch of them on how to play basketball. But and don't think just because he's a chaplain, he won't body check you. He was out there to win. he then went to serve sailors at the base chapel in Jacksonville, Florida. Admittedly, not his first choice, but it wasn't exactly out in the front lines, that's why. But a knee injury dealt him this card. And like any good trial, God gives us. Chaplain Bell made the best of it. Then Chiron came to us here in Littoral Combat Ship Squadron 1. I connected with him when he came to introduce himself to me about a year ago. And an original 5-minute meet and greet turned into a nearly 2-hour conversation. Found out we had a lot in common. We shared an inspiration from a common book. We both believe in strength of spirituality and faith in both our work and in our personal lives. We both arrived at the squadron around the same time. We were very similar in age, and I know I tend to look a lot younger than Chaplain Bell, but I'm sorry, buddy. I don't know what to say. And then I saw him at work, practicing his trade craft of healing, help, leadership, prevention, support, and faith. His office was just down the hall from mine, and whenever I passed by, he had a line out the door. People sought him out. But I know he also sought out people. He didn't just sit there at his desk. We have ships in our squadron out on the waterfront, in shipyards and dockyards in other states. He makes the effort to go to them. Not only does he provide support and counseling, but he also brings back deck plate level awareness to leaders like me. He's able to elicit responses and feedback that, frankly, I don't get at my level. When you're a military commander, people generally want to give you good news. But it's often the not-so-good news where we need to apply more energy and effort. Chaplain Bell has been invaluable in this regard because deck plate sailors want to talk to him, and he wants to listen. There's that critical connection again that Chaplain Bell does so wonderfully well. It's a gift, and I'm personally grateful for that gift. There's another gift Chaplain Bell has, and that's preaching and prayer. The first time I got to hear Chaplain Bell was at a commissioning ceremony for the USS Cincinnati. And the commissioning ceremonies are special events marking the entry of a warship into the U.S. Navy's registry. Chaplain Bell gave the invocation, and he was, one of many speakers that day. How many speakers and who are they? In all honesty, I really couldn't tell you, but I do remember one particular speaker, and that was Chaplain Bell. And I'm not the only one to say this. People who were there will attest to this. While we closed our eyes, bowed our head, and listened to Chaplain Bell, his words were so filled with passion and sincerity that they gripped the audience. And I know many of you know what I mean because, like I said, some of you were there. And some of you have heard his sermons before, so in the same vein. I could hear, during the invocation, Chaplain Bell's invocation, I could hear many spontaneous amens break out all around me. And after the ceremony, Chaplain Bell was like a rock star. I mean, groupies all around him, complimenting him on his heartfelt prayer, and stories like this abound, not only on this occasion, but others. And here we are at this beautiful church. Chaplain Bell also contributes. He is a passionate parishioner and guest preacher, and I know he feels very strongly about the church family he has developed here, especially since he's geographically separated from his 2 boys and daughter. Home away from home, this is. So thank you all for taking him in and giving him a home here. And I heard, despite his kind and gentle looks, he's really quite competitive here at church too. Is that right? Anybody can give some stories? Maybe not in basketball, but what was it? Axe throwing? Right? So they went to go at a social event to go throw some axes, and he couldn't let anybody beat him. I mean, come on, chaps. If there's anything you can be bad at, is throwing a deadly axe. I mean, they're like, oh, Chaplain's not good at that. That's fine. But no, you got to be good at that too. Turned out his team won, so he has that passion. So I think this is a good segue to close. Bottom line, what I want to say is Chaplain Bell is driven and passionate about the things he does, about his faith, and the people he works with. Maximum energy and maximum effort. That's one of the many things I love about this man. I know if he's in my corner, there's hardly a thing I can't overcome. You have served this nation for 27 years, and as a representative of the U.S. Navy and the Department of Defense, I want to express mine and our deepest gratitude for your sacrifice and service. And I want you to know, chaps, that as you close this chapter in life as a Navy chaplain, that you will have all of us here in your corner as you start your next adventure. Fair winds and following seas, always shipmate. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Kim. Captain Kim will now present Lieutenant Bell's Retirement Award and Service Certificate of Appreciation. Lieutenant Bell, front and center. Military members, attention to award. Department of Navy, this is certified that the Secretary of Navy has awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, Gold Star in lieu of third award, to Lieutenant Kyron D. Bell, United States Navy. Military service for immediate superior in command, chaplain, commander, Littoral Combat Ship Squadron 1 from May of 2019 to March 2020. Lieutenant Bell set high standards for chaplains, navigating the unique challenges of the expanding mission and growing class of LCS. He conducted regular pastoral visits to 15 ships to monitor and address various matters affecting the emotional, psychological, and spiritual health of 2,200 sailors. He established a life skills class for sailors disciplined for misconduct, which offered mediation on personal and professional development. Lieutenant Bell's superior performance of duty culminated in his 27 years of honorable and dedicated service. Lieutenant Bell's unswerving determination, wise judgment, and complete dedication to duty reflected credit on him and were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Given this day, 13 of March 2020, signed M.M. McGonigal, Captain of the United States Navy, Commander, Littoral Combat Ship Squadron 1. Lieutenant Bell will also receive his Fleet Reserve Certificate of the United States Navy. Fleet Reserve of the United States Navy is certified that Kyron D. Bell, Lieutenant, United States Navy, was transferred from active duty to Fleet Reserve of the United States on the first day of June after 27 years of faithful service. The certificate is awarded as a testimonial of faithful and honorable service, signed M.M. McGonigal, Captain, United States Navy, Commander, Littoral Combat Ship Squadron 1. Please be seated. Dr. Anderson will now present Lieutenant Bell an award.
Endorsing agent for the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists. Here today, we have Chaplain Hackinson, who is the highest-ranking Adventist chaplain in the United States Navy. He is here to be supportive of Chaplain Bell on the occasion of his retirement, as am I, and my Assistant Director for Adventist Chaplaincy Ministries, Elder Ivan Omanya. And Chaplain Bell, because of your years of faithful and dedicated service. And let me just say this before I say all that. I met him when he was a sergeant in the Air Force. And we've been connected off and on all of that time. So it gives me great pleasure to have watched the career progression that you have had and the dignity and style that you've displayed on every step in your career. So at this point, on the occasion of your retirement, it is our pleasure on behalf of the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists to present you with this Flame Award. We hope that when you display it and look at it around your house, it'll be reminiscent of the Pentecostal flame that has associated your ministry through all these years. And as you go, may God go with you into a bright and bold future. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. We will now present Kyron with his shadow box. Lieutenant Jones will now present the retirement gift: a fine sword, a brace of pistols, a rifle or musket, or maybe a sea chest of fine wood and bound in brass. These are all the items that have been presented to retiring officers to remind them of their crews and ships he or she has served with. This shadow box commemorates his naval and Air Force career and celebrates his many accomplishments. It includes many personal awards and uniform devices indicating the ranks you progress through as you advanced and work your way up the ladder. Additionally, the top portion is the national flag, symbolic of the nation you have so faithfully served for 27 years on active duty. Great job. And like we have said so many times before, we can't do this job without our families. And Kyron's mom has been that staple in his life. And we would like to present Mrs. Bell with you an award. Please join your son in front. By the authority vested in me, it gives me great pleasure to express a grateful nation of the United States Navy and Air Force to you for your unselfish, patriotic, and devoted service to your son's military career. Your unfailing support and understanding helped immeasurably to make possible the lasting contribution to the nation. To those who say a single man cannot make a difference, I say wrong. Your son did. He made our Navy stronger and kept our nation safe. With his service to the Navy and Air Force now complete, he will now be able to spend more time with you in the future. United States Navy thanks you, and I thank you. Signed, Captain McGonigal, United States Navy. Also receiving certificate of appreciation is Miss Elena Bell, and Elena's and Kyron's children, Kadir, Caden, and Khalid. I want to thank them for their faithful service to our nation also. Ladies and gentlemen, now it gives me great pleasure to present Lieutenant Kyron Bell. That's all a rock star needs, right? That's all a rock star needs, one picture. Did. As we're getting that set up, often around the command, I walk by and they say chaplain. Well, I'm not a chaplain, so it's a great honor to be in that same sense that the chaplain is in. He makes a big difference around the command, and he's going to continue doing that no matter where he goes. So, Kyrie, as we figure this out, you want to start?
what was not captured in that long and fantastic description of his career is the fact that as the Surface Forces Pacific Fleet chaplain, I have about 50 chaplains that I supervise, and Chaplain Bell is one of those. And we recently did a study on how many chaplains we need for LCS run. And it turns out that Chaplain Bell has been serving as a chaplain where 4 chaplains are supposed to serve on that. So he has been doing the heavy lifting in the equivalent of 4 chaplains. It's just pretty amazing. And yet I read his reports every month when they're, and I just look down and I think to myself, how can one man do all of this at that? And the numbers of ships, we're going to have a chaplain on almost every ship, and as you said, what, 14 ships it said in there? So, and these ships, and those who are from LCS run in this room know what I'm talking about. These ships are amongst the highest stress platforms that the Navy has. Every time there's one sailor lost on that ship because they have to go off because of something that maybe in their life that they have to they're what we call unplanned loss, it's like losing 3 sailors on another ship because these ships are minimally manned. So the amount of stress these sailors are on LCS is way above, for those of you who are civilians in this room, way above every other ship we have in the Navy. So this man not only has worked successfully and brilliantly with the highest stressed sailors, really, on any ship in the Navy, but he's done it where we should have 4 chaplains. Now that will be corrected maybe in, I don't know, 6 years, something like that. It takes the Navy a long time to do what we need to do. But I will say that not only will he be missed for his style and for his friendship and everything, but I, as a supervisor, he's going to be almost impossible to replace to that level. And so there's going to be a lot of heavy lifting. I see some other chaplains in the room that are out on our waterfront who are here as guests. So buckle up because he's gone and I'm going to be needing you. And they have big jobs too. But I just want to say a special thank you from Vice Admiral Brown for a job well done keeping his sailors as safe as you possibly could there in one of the greatest and highest need platforms we have in the Navy.
Test. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
In this slideshow would have been my career in review, just a bunch of pictures that showcase my life from the start till now. You know, Marvin Sapp sings a song that says, I never could have made it without you. I would have lost my mind. I would have lost it all, but I never could have made it without you. And you, I'm referring to my Lord, my mama, and the support that I had around me to carry me through these years. Are we ready to go forward with the slides? No? So I just continue. I know, Captain Kim, you said quite a bit, so it's supposed to be music with it too. So Murray, should I continue, Murray? Are you gonna be able to get it on? Okay, so I talk. So Captain Kim, because you said so much, you left me with just a few words to say. One of my scriptures, as I was thinking about today, I was reminded of how good God is. And I was reminded that this 27 years was possible because of the goodness of God. And then when you begin to ask, well, why is God so good to people who don't deserve it? And the answer I came up with was God is good because God is love. And the scriptures tells us in Romans 8:35, he says, what shall separate us from the love of God? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? What shall separate us from the love of God? It says, for your sake we are killed all day long. We are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. Yet in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. And Paul ends this scripture with this passage with this. He says, for I am persuaded that neither death nor life, that neither angels nor principalities nor powers, nor things present nor things to come, no coronavirus, no bad political figures, nothing shall separate us from the love that is in Christ Jesus. And so when I think about God's love, I realize that I'm not at a church service right now, but I just got through 27 years of serving in the military, so I got a reason to praise my Lord right now. I got a reason to give God thanks. I got a reason to give God praise. I got a reason to let the world know that we serve a God who is able to do exceeding and abundantly above more than we can ask, think, or imagine. And I don't know today if there's anybody else in here who can testify of God's goodness. But if you need a reason to praise him, I give you one. Why don't you just inhale and then exhale? That's one reason right there to give God praise. If you are in this house with breath in your body, you got functioning lungs, if you got a sound mind, you have a reason to praise God. And I just can't help myself for 27 years. God has delivered me from some stuff. So I'm wearing bars now. Oops, this side. There's a story behind these bars. These bars are significant. These bars are significant because I'm wearing them on. I'm wearing them, senior. But 27 years and 4 months ago, I was pretty much should have been behind bars and still serving my time. So here's a little story. I'm going to give you a little bit, and we're going to continue on. So it was a day in Patterson, Mama. Not sure if you know the story, but Mama believed she had a good boy, but this good boy got himself in trouble, and I was in trouble for real this time. So I was playing basketball, and a friend of mine, he invited friends of his into my car. Now, I didn't know the friend of his, but these friends of his had an agenda. They wanted to do a drive-by shooting. They had beef with people from the rough part of town, and I didn't know it, but they wanted to use my car to do it. So these guys are getting into my vehicle in the back seat, and they're loading rifles because they want me to drive them down to that spot where they know these people are going to be hanging out. Now, mind you, it's the summer, so it's most likely those people should be out that they're looking for. It's summer. And we're going down this block looking for these people that my guys want to shoot. So I wasn't pastoral back then, of course, but I tell you this, that was the first time I had a prayer answered. Because my prayer, as we were driving and we were getting closer and closer to this spot where they wanted us to do for shooting, my prayer was, Lord, please make it so that these people who they're after, they're not outside. Because I had all belief that those guys would have fired out of my vehicle, and whoever they didn't get, and they recognized my car, of course, I would have been the next target if we had just gotten caught. Now, granted, I'm the driver, but I'm the accomplice now to a drive-by murder. So I believe I'll probably just be finishing my bid right now. So when I think about these bars, I'm glad I'm on this side of the bars. So that's a testimony of how good the Lord has been, even in our foolishness. Even when we just go outside of God's plan and we have no reason for him to bless us, he finds a reason to bless you. Aren't you so glad that God's goodness don't depend on your goodness? Aren't you so glad that God's goodness, it doesn't depend on your color, it doesn't depend on your race, it doesn't depend on your stature, it doesn't depend on your politics. God's goodness doesn't depend on anything you bring to the table. But God is good because God is love. And so I'm standing before you today because we serve a good God. And he has brought me through 27 years. This wasn't supposed to be, senior. Because if I told you the drive-by shooting was the only thing that I messed around with, nah. Even in the service, I got in some trouble now. Captain Kim talked about my boot camp experience. How many guys get on the 5th day of training and get sent back 10 days? I don't know if you ever ran into a guy who gets on day 5, but I'm so much of a handful to these people that they got to put me back 10 days. And so I'm in this room just isolated, nobody around. I'm just sitting in this room for 2 weeks. And it's time for me to think about whether I want to continue with this military thing or just send my butt back home. But I tell you, my pride wouldn't let me go back home, Mama. You had a nice place, but I just couldn't go back home. So I figured out a way to get myself in order, and I got back into the fight. And from that point on, the Air Force didn't have to check me no more. I just kind of knew how to do it. But then, you know, the story goes on. I even had some bouts in the Navy. But I'm not going to take too much time to give you that. We can just talk over that during lunch. But basically, what I want to do right now is just go down a little short list of people who've been mentors and pillars for me. So it started back in Whiteman Air Force Base. That was my first Air Force duty station. Kid from the hood. I'm in the middle of Missouri. That was quite an adjustment to make. But I ran across a guy, Technical Sergeant Colbert. This guy took me in like his own child. I don't know what he saw in me, but he just saw something in me that said, I want to grab this young boy up. And he brought me to his house, and I spent weekends by his house, his wife, and he had a young daughter, so he trusted me to be a part of his house for the weekend. But his mentoring, while I was at Whiteman Air Force Base, I think really solidified some of the things that would soon play out in my life, and the values that Mama instilled, he just continued to build on those values. So Tech Sergeant Colbert was my guy at my first tour. But then we go to my next tour, Keesler Air Force Base. So I was an instructor there. And I think the people who really got me started in ministry was that church, the Maranatha Seventh-day Adventist Church. The members, they just loved me to life. You know, and the pastor there, he saw something in me too. You know, I don't know what people see in me, but the pastor there, he saw something there in me, and he wanted to see it blossom, so they anointed me and made me a little elder in training. I was only like 24 years old. but he saw this spiritual calling at that young age. I didn't see it, but it was there. So as I left Whiteman Air Force Base, my next tour of duty was at the Pentagon. And while at the Pentagon, I met Chaplain Anderson. Chaplain Anderson was a lieutenant then. I was a staff sergeant, and I was actually in a pretty critical part of my life where I needed to reach out to somebody who I felt understood me. And Chaplain Anderson was a guest speaker at one of our churches, the Breath of Life Church out there in Fort Washington, Maryland. And the minute I heard you speak, I recognized you were the guy I need to speak to. So we found you. We found out how to reach you, and we located you, and you were gracious enough to give us some time. So Chaplain Anderson, I thank you for that. And then from the Pentagon, my next tour of duty was at the U.S. Strategic Command in Offutt Air Force Base. So you always have mentors of some type, but the person at STRATCOM wasn't your typical kind of person that got me squared away. Master Sergeant Yax, her words to me at one of our social functions was this. This is what she observed. We were doing a social event, outing, and she observed that I was, in her words, standoffish. I never forgot those words. I never forgot how she described me. She said I was standoffish. And what I took from that is I was in my own world. I was kind of in my own corner. I was kind of withdrawn away from people. And because I didn't want to be that, I guess I became a chaplain where I'm around people all the time. So I wanted to, I guess, prove Sergeant Yax wrong. No, I'm not standoffish. I can talk. I can break out. I can even look good too while doing it. But so Master Sergeant Yax was that person that got me kind of moving another direction. So I left STRATCOM, the U.S. Strategic Command, and then I took a tour of duty as an Air Force recruiter. So as an Air Force recruiter, that was cool because that brought me back home. And for a minute, we did live with Mama. I brought the wife and the kids, and we lived in Mama's house. So that was good. Then we moved out. But while I was at the recruiting tour, there was another recruiter in the Navy's office who caught my attention. So Captain Kim talked about that I graduated top recruiter out of the recruiting school, which is pretty difficult. But when I got actually on the street and was recruiting, I did well my first 2 months. I got my numbers. Recruiting is driven by quotas, goals. I made my numbers. But then for a period of time, I had this drought. And when I should have been rolling, 2, 3 people in the Air Force a month, I was getting like zeros. For like months, zeros. So I was in this space like, what the heck is going on? Why am I getting these zeros? I know how to do this thing. Why am I rolling zeros? Ain't nobody want to do the Air Force, And I had to, am I doing something wrong here? I just graduated top recruiter. Why am I rolling zeros? So out of the Navy's office was this guy named Chief Gaddy. So Chief Gaddy, he was a believer. I was younger than he was, and so Chief Gaddy, my competitor, he saw me and began to pray with me, and we began to pray together, and next thing you know, after we began to, he kind of encourages me and gets me back into the fight. Now I'm back 2s and 3s and 4. Now I'm exceeding the Air Force's goals, so much so that there were other Air Force recruiters near me in other districts that I had enough people to give other recruiters help so that they had their numbers met too. So I credit that to Chief Gaddy, who took time to get me back into the fight, a competitor. So maybe that's the first time I saw Navy in a good way. And I say that because I always had a side eye with Navy because my brother was Navy. Remember the competitor spirit? So my brother was Navy, and I didn't want to be where he was. He did the Navy, I did the Air Force. He talked up his career, I talked up mine. And so I never thought I would be in the Navy. But I think Chief Gaddy showed me something different. So here I am today. I got a bunch of people who supported me, even in this room. The participants, those of you who took your time out your day to see me get this, thank you. To our flag detail, thank you. Thank you to the guests here, the USS Cincinnati. We have the XO here now. The USS Cincinnati is special to me because that's my first underway. My first Navy underway. I'm wearing a belt buckle. How about that? My first Navy underway with the USS Cincinnati. Thank you, sir. Thank you for allowing me to sail with you all and to just be a part of the life of the Cincinnati. Please send my regards to your crew. Yes, sir. To the pastor here, thank you for inviting me to your pulpit to preach. To the members here, you loved me to life. You guys knew that there were some things going on with me, but you took time to encourage me and build me up. Thank you. I appreciate that. Chaplain Hackinson, thank you very much for taking time to be here today and support me on this day. Chaplain Anderson, Captain Kim, my roommate. Thank you, sir. My mom. Hold up, sir. What's going on here? Is somebody? Is that what it is? Hold up. So, I know, Mama. Oh man. So, Mama has been there every step of the way. Every step of the way. When I've been stationed all over the place and something of significance happens, she finds her way to be there. She will stop what she's doing and be there. My mama. Thank you, Mama. So my brother was here last weekend. He couldn't make it today because he's already booked for a trip. My brother Tyrus. My sister Nigel. Yes. And before I close, I want to recognize, I think they should be watching, if we're streaming. So Elena Bell, she's been there since 96. Wow. 96, this woman has been in my corner. And we have 3 kids. Kadir, 23 years old, my man. And then the one they said, I guess they said we look alike, my middle boy, Caden, 18-year-old. This dude is going to the Air Force on June 16th. Talking about looking at a proud dad. He is going into the Air Force and leaving on June 16th. So I'm going to have to find him on day of graduation, when he graduates, and I will stop what I'm doing to be there. If you're looking, son, I will be there on your graduation. And then his baby girl, 12-year-old, my baby girl, Kylie. Yeah, that's my heart. They couldn't be here today because of the travels, but I love you. I love you. Thank you all for being here today. God bless you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Bell. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now observe a time-honored Navy tradition, a passing of Old Glory. Flag detail, post.
I am the flag of the United States of America, and my name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over great institutions of learning. I stand guard with the greatest military power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, and justice. I am confident. I am arrogant. I am proud. When I am flown with my fellow men, my name, my color, I bow. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshipped. I am revered. I am loved. And I am feared. I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. Gettysburg, Shiloh, Appomattox, San Juan, trenches of France, the Argonne Forest, Antietam, Rome, the beaches of Norfolk, the jungles of Guam, Okinawa, Taro, Afghanistan, and a score of places long forgotten by all, except for those who were there with me. I led my sailors and marines. I followed them. I watched over them. They loved me. I was on a small hill on Iwo Jima. I was battle worn and tired, but my sailors and marines cheered me. I was at Ground Zero in New York City on September 11th as cowardly fanatics attacked America. I was raised from the ashes of once proud buildings by brave firefighters, heroes who risked their lives to save others, showing all that America, although bloody, will never be equal. Those who destroy me cannot win, for I am the symbol of freedom, of one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of my own country. And when it is done by those whom I have served with in battle, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong. I have slipped in the surly bonds of earth, and from my advantages mournful, I stand watch over the uncharted new frontiers of space. I have been a silent witness to all of America's finest hours. But my finest hours comes when I am torn into strips to be used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the field of battle. When I fly half-mast to honor my soldiers, my sailors, my airmen, and my marines. And when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving mother at the gravesite of her fallen son or daughter, I am proud. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave, dear gods, long may I wave.
Flag detail. Host. Chief Petty Officer Det would now read the watch. Paul Allenson would now deliver the benediction. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the benediction.
Let us pray. Eternal Father, strong to save, we stand before you today giving you honor, glory, and praise, thanking you for being with Chaplain Kyron Bell through many dangers, toils, and snares, delivering him to this point where this portion of his career comes to a close, and you open up a brand new and bright vista of opportunity for him going forward. I pray, dear God, that you would bless him so that the road rises to meet him and the wind will always be at his back. I pray that you will bless him with adventures, with opportunities, with prosperity, with peace, joy, and fulfillment. I pray that you will give him health in abundance, wealth in proportion, and dear God, that you would bind him and his family and their future in Jesus' name forever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Side boys, post. This order has been passed on naval ships from the 1500s through today. Spanish, French, English, all navies of the world use the bosun and side boys to bring aboard and send ashore ship's company officers, visiting officials, dignitaries, and VIPs. The side boys haul on the ropes and raise and lower the boarding platform so officers would not have to climb the rat lines, which were hanging over the side and used by the enlisted crew. When going ashore or to go get aboard, this honor has been extended to visiting officers, dignitaries, and port officials. It was not uncommon for the commanding officer of a ship to order up a jolly boat, a crew of 8 strong-backed side boys and bosuns to send an old shipmate ashore to his shore retirement home, never to sail on a naval ship again. All hands on deck was passed, speeches were made, and great victories, battles fought upon open seas, raging storms, weathered, and voyages to the distant strange lands with port of calls only others could dream about. Lieutenant Bell would now report to Captain Kim and request permission to go ashore for the last time. Postmaster watch, strike 2 bells. Lieutenant, United States Navy, departing. Navy family, departing. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. On behalf of Lieutenant Bell and his family, I'd like to thank you for attending today's ceremony. You're invited to attend the reception behind the church.